on broadly issues around broadly related to human rights issues, some of these challenges that are emerging related to AI and so forth. But the third strand, which was more of an Estonian, I would say, responsibility together with the accountability lab, was then focusing on more the positive sides, because technology can also do quite a bit to enhance democracy and to improve the relationship between governments and the people. And here what we did, we very much followed the GovStack initiative, which I think has been also introduced in several sessions, and we were supposed to do it also this session, but we thought it would also be good to have a little break. But what GovStack does, it basically gathers this experience around digitalization from across the globe, and we have different building blocks there. But currently, we do not have, or until now, we did not have a building block around e-democracy, or what we would maybe narrow it down to e-participation, to mainly to the state relationship with the public, and of course, all the stakeholders in our societies. So we started now the work around working on different, let's say, technical specifications for different e-participation possibilities. This could be around legislative process, it could be petitions, could be participatory budgeting, and so forth. So we started now with legislative proceedings, bringing together some experience that we have had in Estonia, but also in very many other countries. Iceland has been very active, of course, in this work, and many others. And this work will also continue, and I hope to introduce it at some point in, I guess, in more detail to the network also here, but also spread the knowledge and actually ask everybody to join. So we hope to connect this e-democracy cohorts work, or the Tech for Democracy cohorts work, more with GovStack initiative, but also other digital public infrastructure or digital public goods networks and initiatives, and perhaps also the G20 digital cooperation model that is currently being developed during the India's presidency, that is very active in promoting digital public infrastructure or global digital cooperation under this framework. And we hope to come to a bigger announcement during the Open Government Partnership Summit this year. I don't know how many of you are aware. I think it was in 2011 when Obama initiated Open Government Partnership Initiative, that of course has very many strands or lines of work, but I believe that the common aim is still to improve governance and society with the help of technologies. So we are co-hosting this event this year. We are co-chairs with Italy, and the summit of the OGP will take place in Tallinn in 6th and 7th of September. It's not a good time. I know many will go to school. In some places it is still summer, but in Estonia the season starts, and it's still the time where we believe that people would like to return to Estonia after they have been to Estonia. So for us, the time to organize really international events is very short. So we will continue also our work done in the Tech for Democracy cohort after this week. So perhaps the week is quite busy, but will be, I would say, summoned on Thursday when we have the final event of the Summit for Democracy, and we'll also introduce our strand work here. There are some other strands that that are showcasing their work regionally. I believe it is in Zambia, Netherlands, I believe some other countries. So they will showcase the works that they may have done around media freedom, disinformation, and many different other aspects that are related to democracy. So this has kept me and will keep me unfortunately away. At soon Denmark will announce their big digital democracy initiative. They have done the sort of the pre-announcement already, and perhaps we can also discuss. I think it would also be really cool for us all to know what Denmark is doing around their tech for democracy efforts. A year and a half ago, they launched a very ambitious initiative called Tech for Democracy, and this will be now the continuation on digital democracy together with the European Union. And I think their sort of motivation is also to spread these values and really start to implement them to have some real impact in around the globe, and including in very many African countries. So perhaps we could have a sort of summit for democracy follow-up a bit, and see what different partners are doing, and really also see how it connects to the work that all of us in this network are pursuing. So I don't know, Meilin, if I need to stop to give.
Thank you, Nelly.
But if somebody has a question about what is going on, I'm really glad to.
Marcy,
I'm really glad to take questions.
Marcy, would you like to have a follow-up?
Sure. And Nelly, this is such wonderful news to hear about. I know Estonia has absolutely been leading the way on this. I just wanted to flag that we at Popbox and also Popbox Foundation have been working for over a decade on participatory technology with the US Congress. And so to the extent we can be helpful or plug in or share information or technology, I would love to. I'll also be briefly in Estonia this summer, so perhaps there's a way to chat there.
Yes, I feel a little uncomfortable without video. I'm trying to put it on and seeing whether it will work, but I'm really glad to hear that there are people who are interested and also willing to contribute. So definitely I will keep posted and see how we can integrate some of what you have been doing with the Open Government Partnership Summit. It will be a huge event, and as in nature or in line with the principles of OGP, there's quite a bit of room apart from high panels. So often these events focus on getting high-level people there, which we will also do, but the majority actually will be on different sessions initiated by the partners or OGP and beyond. So I see already in this call also other familiar faces. I'm sure that Kate is there, and and Alex and many others that we have been cooperating. So I'm looking forward to make this a blast.
So I want to recognize Gora right after this, but since Kate Wilson has been mentioned, I want to say how pleased we are at the People-Centered Internet that she has accepted a senior fellowship with the People-Centered Internet, bringing her extraordinary experience and skills and her leadership most recently at DIAL, the Digital Impact Alliance. So welcome, Kate, to the PCI community as an official senior fellow. And now, Gora, please ask your question or statement.
Sure. Just a comment, a follow-up what Marcy was saying. Very coincidentally, Marcy, next week, as a part of the IEEE delegate, we are meeting Congress as a part of the IEEE's interaction with Congress in DC, where we'll be meeting the senators and the legislators. So conversations of this type will definitely come up as a part of my interaction. So FYI. And happy
Great.
to offline connect with you. I'll drop my email on the chat. Thank you.
So I wanted to, before Nelly left, actually bring a topic to the forefront of this meeting, which is about the Global Digital Compact. So I'm bringing it up. And Nelly, Estonia has not set its position on the Global Digital Compact, but I want to let this organization, I mean, our little informal network, know about what's going on. So the Global Digital Compact will be signed next year with the United Nations, set up by the UN Secretary General. And it will be signed by all 193 countries. The process is starting now with the agenda for the Global Digital Compact being discussed by the countries, and the agenda will be set at the UN General Assembly in September. I wanted to just show some of the pictures from yesterday's deep dive. It was a full assembly with translation and everything. On the left here, you see Amandeep Gill, who is the United Nations tech envoy, who's in charge of the whole process of getting to the Global Digital Compact. And then there are two facilitators, one from Rwanda and one from Sweden. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to capture her face, but she is sitting there. And then they heard from entities like the European Union, Canada, the Digital Cooperation Organization with 12 countries in Middle East and Northern Africa, the United Kingdom, Google. This lady was from Google, and she made a statement. Dio Tobing from the World Benchmarking Alliance also made a statement. And this went on for hours. That I attended the first 3 hours, but I think there were 3 hours after lunch as well. So a lot of things are happening related to the Global Digital Compact. And I wanted to say, Dorothy Gordon, of course, was there, and she probably can give a little update after I finish my remarks. The Global Digital Compact is almost going to be the crowning achievement of the current UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. That's from my perspective, because he is the first and only electrical engineer to be Secretary General. He has been elected for 2 terms, 2 5-year terms. And for those of us in the technical community, his tenure is when we can expect the most clear-headed progress on digital issues, given that he understands this, being a former professor of communications and signal processing in Portugal before he entered the whole UN system after becoming Prime Minister of Portugal. So for us, the Digital Cooperation and Diplomacy Network, the Global Digital Compact is key. And I also wanted to share another thing, which is the written remarks of my intervention at this event, which is here. And I will also put the link in the slides, in the chat. But we, within the People-Centered Internet, want to remind people that, in fact, 2024, when it will be signed, is the 50th anniversary of the publication of the TCP/IP specification, which underlies the internet. And we are the lead author, People-Centered Internet is the lead author of a Think 7 paper for the Japan G7 presidency. And this paper will build on the digital policy briefs that we developed for the German G7 presidency last year. And we have a huge list of policy authors in this proposal from both the public and the private sector, as well as academia. And essentially, we are making the case that to continue in the spirit of the internet, interoperability and feedback is the loom for us to weave a tapestry for the next 50 years. That there's a significant gap between the digital elite and the people everywhere, anywhere, speaking any language. And we have to pay much more attention to participation and engagement by ordinary people. It cannot be an afterthought. So we are proposing within the Think 7 process under the Japan G7 presidency, the concept of a prosperity network to prioritize participation. So it's very apropos that Marcy just talked about the participation of people in Congress. And this is to extend that to be an instrument that harnesses science and digitalization to support all existing initiatives. So it's a sort of a network to connect existing initiatives in such a way that ordinary people can participate. And we're building on the original spirit of the internet and particularly with ITU's leadership in GovStack, which was brought up earlier, and where Estonia is one of the leading countries behind GovStack for common digital building blocks. And the Prosperity Network will also be driving for the regional cross-border digital regulatory sandboxes. This is so important for bringing the private sector in, because the private sector cannot invest and contribute and innovate without clarity on the future direction of legislation, policy, regulation. And what we're proposing through the Prosperity Network is a way where we can all get to know each other and move this forward so that we can use public sector funding to catalyze initiatives and private sector funding to bring them to commercialization and to spread and scale around the world. So this proposal is being done under the Japan G7, but we've got very significant Italian involvement in the development of this, and we hope that this will be a feature of the Italian G7 presidency next year, exactly when the Global Digital Compact will be signed. So that's an update of what we've been doing at the People-Centered Internet, and I see that our network here would be moving forward together on this Internet of the People, by the people, for the people, with the people initiative. And we will continue to welcome speakers and participants who want to contribute to this effort. With that, I think we get to bid farewell to Nelly Loss, who has to leave in a few minutes. And Nelly, did you want to say anything before you go?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mei-Lin. Of course, to guarantee this, what we want from digital society to continue to be open and free and being based on multilateral cooperation, we of course find and support Tech Envoy and also the Digital Global Compact process, and we also agree that it's very important that that we from Estonia, but also from the EU and all over the globe, actually contribute to this process. As of now, as you also said, there are different initiatives and networks through which we contribute. I see ITU is here. They have the Partner to Connect initiative. Yesterday and today there is a Freedom of Online Coalition strategy meeting. We will contribute through the Freedom of Online Coalition. There are also, of course, our contribution to the Digital Public Goods Alliance and Digital Public Goods or Digital Commons more generally. But we, yes, have not yet taken a stance whether we will also, in addition to that, do something individually, even though, of course, we follow and support the process. So this is, but I believe also the deadline was extended. It was supposed to be, I think, 31st of March, but I think it's now extended to the 30th of April, if I'm not mistaken, to make the contributions, or at least the first contributions to the Digital Global Compact. We are also discussing, of course, in the EU, what will be the EU's common approach. and there we will have actually at this very moment there is a discussion on it, but I will know a little bit later how that went and whether we agreed on which are these topics that we as EU will be pursuing. So this, I think, is all from my side. I believe soon we can have some updates from the process and what the, let's say, perhaps the first results have been, but also what have been the results from the consultations, because Germany is supporting the consultations with several countries. I know that we have a participant from the GIZ. Also, my colleague from the Ministry of, or let's say the Federal Foreign Office are supporting TEC in consultations, I believe with India, Mexico, and there were some other, I think Kenya, or there were some other countries. So it would also be interesting to know what are the results of these consultations, and also make sure that this process remains open and transparent, and that we have an overview how this compact is being developed, and that we all have a say there. But I will not take more time. I understand that we have actually a really interesting topic coming up. I believe we have an ITU going to introduce the AI for Good global summit, and the preparations for this and what is going to happen. If I am, May-Lin can correct me. If,
That's right. So
yeah.
Nelly, thank you. I think that will do for an introduction for Fred Werner, and we thank Alex Wong for organizing this. Fred, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
And bye-bye, Nelly.
Okay, thank you for the very kind introduction. Before I begin, I just want to share some slides. And if you could please confirm if you can see my slides. 1 sec.
Yes, it's coming up. It's up now.
Okay, well, thank you again, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you may be. My name is Fred Werner from the ITU, and it's a privilege to be here today and present AI for Good to you. Before I begin, I wanted to share something with you that came across my desk last night, which I think you might find quite interesting. So I'd like you to have a look at this image and this video and just try and figure out what's going on or what might be behind this. So here is image number 1. Here is image number 2. Similar approach, a different person. And here is image number 3. Okay, so what's going on here? Is this some new secret agency we don't know about? Is it the trailer to the next Mission Impossible movie? No, it's actually an art project made by a student called The Watcher. And basically what the student did is he recorded 10 days of open camera feed. So in this case, it's Times Square, where many of you probably are. But you have these cameras all over the world. And then he went to Instagram and scraped publicly available photos and profiles that were geotagged to the same location as the open camera feeds. And then basically using off-the-shelf machine learning tools, created a match. So now you can actually see what was happening right before that person took their glorious Instagram selfie. Now, why am I telling you this? When we created AI for Good in 2017, about 5 years ago, we knew this would be possible one day, but it still seemed like science fiction, or it would have been the domain of governments or big tech. But this is something that is literally done in someone's bedroom now. So things have moved along quite quickly. And I think you've all seen in the news, all the news about generative AI tools like ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, Midjourney. I even noticed on the Zoom call that we're using Otter AI to take notes. That's great. Nobody likes taking notes, right? So is this good? Is this bad? Is this ugly? Well, it depends, right? If you're a detective trying to solve a missing persons case, it might be quite useful to know who this football fan was with before he disappeared. If you're a jealous partner trying to figure out what your partner was doing on the weekend, you're quickly getting into the gray zone. And I think it's not hard to imagine how something like this could easily be used and abused in the wrong hands, or if you just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But like all technologies, technology can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And that's exactly why we created AI for Good in 2017 with 40 UN sister agencies and co-convened with Switzerland. Now, AI for Good was built on the premise that we now have less than 10 years to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So everything from climate change to affordable healthcare, education for all, gender equity, and going to more high-tech solutions like autonomous driving, smart cities, or even partnerships. The potential is definitely there. At the same time, we have to be vigilant. We've seen, the unintended consequences of AI. Obviously, the big fear is job loss due to automation, but also lots of issues with biased data sets, with privacy, with safety, with ethics, deepening the digital divide, as we just heard before. So these are all things that are very much top of mind of the AI for Good community. And the goal of AI for Good, is simply put, is to identify practical applications of AI that exist here today that can advance the Sustainable Development Goals and also figure out how to scale these solutions for global impact. And how do we do this? Well, first of all, we can't do this alone. That's why we have 40 UN sister agencies as partners of AI for Good. So that's virtually the entire UN system that's helping to contribute to build webinar programs. They're contributing speakers, expertise. In some cases, we're doing projects together, or we're collaborating on pre-standardization efforts and initiatives. And also at the same time, they're there to attend and to learn and to network with the rest of the global AI for Good community. And also the AI for Good experts would say that AI is too important to leave to the experts alone. So great efforts have been made to bring as many different voices to the table. Here you can just see a snapshot of, you had a former Secretary General, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, a Turing Award winner, astronauts, entrepreneurs, ministers, UN officials, AI experts, athletes, and that's just a snapshot of the hundreds and hundreds of profiles that have been contributing to AI for Good over the years. And during, you may remember, AI for Good was a summit in Geneva, which happened 2017, 18, 19. And then we had to reinvent ourselves into an all-year online platform as COVID hit. So if you look at this calendar, you can see basically every yellow line is an AI for Good webinar. And you can see in 2020, the first 3 months are empty, where we naively believed we'd be hosting another summit in Geneva. And when COVID hit, we, instead of waiting for blue skies, we just basically put the program online and as an experiment to see what happened. And as you can see, a lot happened. We're doing in the order of 150 online events per year, covering all topics aligned to the SDGs, positive use cases of AI. And it basically allowed us to scale our mission, going from a 5-day event in Geneva once a year, attracting about 2,000 people. We've now attracted tens of thousands of people. Gender participation has increased to almost 50-50. Developing country participation has more than doubled. We've reached 183 countries. So virtually every touch point in the sense of being the most global, neutral, and inclusive and diverse AI Good for platform was basically enhanced by going online. So now AI for Good is presented along 3 streams, what we call learn, build, and connect. So on the learn side, you basically have knowledge sharing, expertise, debate, discourse in the form of keynotes, webinars, interviews, demos, and there's online sessions happening almost every other working day on the AI for Good platform. And then we have what we call build. So these are collaboration efforts. And for example, we have a year-long startup pitching competition for startups using AI in a unique way to advance the SDGs. We have a number of machine learning challenges, for example, machine learning in 5G networks, or using satellite imagery, or using tiny microtransistors. We also have a number of pre-standardization efforts and initiatives. And then, of course, we have the connection mechanism, which used to take place with a physical event, but is now taking place online, and really using AI as a kind of catalyst to bring the whole UN together on this topic, but also connect the UN with industry, with academia, member states, civil society, and what have you. And one of the things we launched just a year ago is what we call the AI for Good Neural Network. And this is an AI-powered online community platform. And I would describe it as a combination of Netflix, a dating app, and a virtual events platform. So Netflix, in the sense that because we have hundreds and hundreds of AI for Good sessions online, we can't expect you to browse through all of them. So when you create a profile, you're presented with a customized profile, much like you would when you create a Netflix account. There's also a smart matching capability. So when you take the smart matching quiz, you might say, okay, I'm interested in data. I have data. There would be a match. I'm interested in cloud storage. I have cloud storage. There'd be a match. I'm interested in funding. I have funding. That's a popular one. There would be a match. So there we're really using technology to try and scale AI for Good collaborations all year long beyond what would happen, with a handshake at a physical event. And last but not least, that's where all of the webinars are running. We have virtual exhibits for partners, but also for the UN agencies. And we launched this just over a year ago. And since then, over 15,000 people have created profiles. And, it's not like joining a LinkedIn group where you press a button and you're in the group. It's a bit of a heavy ask. You have to create a profile. You have to select your preferred SDGs. You have to take a smart matching quiz. And but in doing so, you get a lot of value. And I think the testament is that 15,000 people have created profiles. Out of there, you have about 1,000 people from the UN who are on there. And it's growing at a rate of about 300 profiles a week. So that's, I think, a good example of using technology to scale AI for Good collaborations. One of our catchphrases, if you will, is that we're more than just a talk shop, where we're not an event, we're a platform, and we're action-oriented. So since we've launched AI for Good, we've launched a number of pre-standardization efforts, a lot of them in collaboration with other UN agencies. So for example, we have AI for Health that was created with the World Health Organization. And basically they're working on a benchmarking framework for the testing and evaluation of the efficacy of AI for Health algorithms, for example. We've also launched focus groups with FAO on digital agriculture, natural disaster management with WMO and UNEP. We have focus groups on telecommunications and 5G, environmental efficiency, road safety, autonomous driving, and also working with the Road Safety Envoy and the UN Tech Envoy. One deliverable that was just released last week is the UN Activities Artificial Intelligence Report. And this is available on our website. The updated version just released last week at WSIS. And this is actually a really great inventory of what all the UN agencies are doing in AI. And this report's been going on for a few years now. And it's really impressive how much the AI activities in these agencies have increased. So in this report, we've identified 281 AI projects among 40 UN agencies, and that's an increase of 80 projects compared to last year. So if you haven't done so, I would highly recommend downloading it and giving it a browse. Now, as good as going all year online has been, there's still been a strong demand for people to reconnect in person. So we will be having a AI for Good Global Summit in Geneva on the 6th of 7th of July. And basically what we're trying to do, because we're having 150 webinars online per year, our goal is not to recreate that. We really want to use the opportunity to get people to reconnect in person, really focus on the networking, the matchmaking, the experiences. So it's a 2-day program now. Everyone in the main room, no plenaries, no panels. Networking time has been doubled. We have lots of experiences with robotics and artists. And one thing I would highlight, however, is there will be a ministerial roundtable meeting taking place at the summit, and this will be led by Amandeep, the UN Tech Envoy, and this will be part of the Global Digital Compact consultation process. So that's a pretty important touch point throughout the process, but also leveraging the fact that the whole AI for Good community will be in Geneva at that time. This is just a snapshot of some of the early confirmed speakers. We have the CTO of Amazon, Yuval Harari, the COO of DeepMind, and I'll put the link to this event in the chat afterwards, so you can look at on your own time through the latest speakers. And one thing I'd like to say is as good as the speakers are, the stars of the program might actually not be human. They might be the robots. So this will be the first event in the world where we bring together 9 humanoid robots and about 30 specialized robots, all mapped to the SDGs. And I just want to play a little video that might motivate you to travel to Geneva in July. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a good snapshot of where we're at with AI for Good and the upcoming Global Summit. And if you haven't done so, I would encourage you to create a profile on the AI for Good neural network, so then you can be part of that 15,000 strong community and also be kept updated for all of our activities. And then also, if you can come to Geneva, great. If not, the event is streamed online, the summit. So I'll share all these links in the chat, and I'd like you just to thank you for your time and the opportunity to present here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. This was really enlightening and exciting to see how prescient ITU was in setting up this AI for Good. You've got a head start on everyone else, and it really shows. And thank you, Alex Wong, for organizing such a stellar speaker. Great work. So we're on to our next speaker, Sonia Jorge. Sonia has been part of this community from the very, very beginning, where she was the head of the Alliance for the Affordable Internet under the Web Foundation. But she has recently moved on, and we are the kind of network where it's about the people, not the institutions. So we've invited Sonia to tell us about what she's doing now. Sonia, go ahead.
Thank you, Maylene. Let me see if I can share my screen quickly with you all, if possible. Let's see.
So while she's sharing, the Web Foundation was the overarching umbrella for the Alliance for the Affordable Internet. So she's made a very large impact in the world with the Alliance for the Affordable Internet, writing many reports for the World Bank and the UN. And I can't wait to hear what Sonia is up to now.
Let me just make sure that you're seeing
yes, we're seeing it.
The slides. Can you, are you seeing them properly as a presentation, or
no, you have to say start from beginning.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because then you lose the
we just lost it. You're right.
Oh yeah, that's the thing, you kind of lose when let me try again. If not, Snyder has my slides, so
I can present.
Yes, Snyder, please do so.
Okay, yeah, for some
you start
reason,
talking, Sonia.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. So we'll do that. Thank you so much for having the backup ready. So thank you, first of all, Maylene, for giving me the opportunity to introduce the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership to this group. We're very excited to be here. And as you said, I've been part of this community throughout time. We took a little bit of a break because we were very busy starting a whole new organization. As you all can imagine, it was quite the effort, but really nice to be here. And so I'm happy to answer any questions after I just give you a brief introduction. And I see that Dorothy's already asking a few. Thank you, Dorothy. It's so nice to see you here. So who are we? So we very much, for those of you who knew the Alliance for Affordable Internet, which has been a really tremendously successful project that I led with my team for about 10 years. That project has now ended for reasons we don't have to go into now, but we continue to leverage on that experience, that work, and started the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership, very much reconstituting the partners that have come together as part of the alliance, but with a more sharper mission, I would say, and also an extended scope. We also took advantage of that as part of this process of rethinking and re-strategizing on how to address the main concern to us, which is the digital divide, how to structure our entire mission and work around it. And so hence you see meaningful connectivity for the global majority. That is very much how we look at our work. Meaningful connectivity, as you know, and I'll tell you a little bit more about. You've heard a lot of people using that term. We worked very hard to really develop that concept, not just ourselves, but with many partners. And we're very happy that the ITU and others have really embraced it and moved it even forward. And for us, the goal of the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership as such is very much not only focusing on meaningful connectivity, but also focusing on the global majority, countries in the global south, low and low middle income countries that continuously remain the ones, thank you, Snyder, that's perfect, that continuously are the ones left behind and with the greatest challenges to address, so that the amazing possibilities that Frederick just shared with us on his fantastic presentation can be possible, because right now a great percentage of the world's population cannot even dream of having those possibilities that he was just sharing with us. And so for us, we see that as not only an opportunity that is useful, but is an opportunity that can be transformational, that can support people's livelihoods and lives in multiple ways. I mean, I don't have to tell you, I would be speaking to the choir here. You all are believers in these. That's why we're part of this amazing network that Maylene has been leading for some time now. But so who are we, and how do we present ourselves? And this is really an introduction presentation to all of you, so you understand how we work. So we are a coalition of public, private, and civil society organizations working on this mission of bringing meaningful connectivity to the global majority. We are also focusing very much on the 2030 goals. We want to see ourselves as ideally an organization that doesn't need to live for too long, but that can exist for when it's necessary and adapt and adjust as the world changes and priorities change. So that's very important to us as we set ourselves to start. Next slide, Snyder. We also see ourselves very much as what you see in the slide, as our name being our mission. And this is really important to us. So you see they are advancing universal meaningful access in low and middle income countries, as I just mentioned to you, to secure digital inclusion for everyone by 2030. And I want to emphasize that because, there's so many possibilities of work that can be done. I mean, look at all of you here in these groups. So much incredible work that is happening at the same time, right? It's one of the things that I love about this network is learning about all of the work, how we can all complement each other. And for us, really kind of being laser focused on the connectivity piece is very important, but it became also very critical for us to see that connectivity cannot exist in a vacuum, right? And so we think about this meaningful access equation as something that looks at continues to look at the affordability issues, the quality of the technical connectivity that people have so that all the possibilities are there and become a reality, but also the kind of social environmental issues that are so critical. And that's part very much of the kind of expansion of the concept of meaningful connectivity that we've been working with many partners, very much led by the roundtable that ITU and others were working with us and leading as part of the global digital cooperation process. And why is that important? Because we wanted to not set aside, but really focusing at the same time on things like skills and also sustainable access, so that this idea of meaningful connectivity and meaningful access is all encompassing and looks at the very critical elements.
Diplomacy sessions.
Oops, sorry, someone unmuted themselves. So next slide, Snyder. And so I'm not going to repeat these numbers, you all know. But one thing I like to say that people that hear me talk, hear me say all the time, and I just want to hammer on that over and over again. Doreen was just highlighting, we work together with the ITU on the Connecting Humanity effort project that we're hoping to follow up actually this year and next year, where we estimated that we only needed about 428, so say $430 billion to really bring everyone in the world to that level of universal meaningful connectivity that we are all aspiring to. And we are very far from being there, right? If we want to meet these goals by 2030, we are very far in many respects, as you can see from the other data here that you all very familiar with. But, there's been a lot of efforts, including the Partner to Connect and many other efforts that are taking place across the world. But that's only a sliver, right? And what I always like to point out, and I think it's a good analogy, and I apologize if you heard me say these many, many times, but I think it's important. $430 billion is how much the world spends annually on soda. And so I always tell people, look, if we can spend that much money on soda as consumers of something that is completely relevant in our lives, can we not bring those resources together to bring people to have universal, meaningful connectivity and meet the targets that the ITU very wisely set for us for 2030? We need to do better. And that is our mission, right? Really work together in collaboration with all of the partners that we work with to change that picture and to mobilize resources, policymakers, all of our partners to do better, wiser, so we can get there. I don't believe we're going to get there. That's the reality, but we need to do our best. And so next slide, Snyder. And I'll try to stop very soon so that we can have a conversation. Next slide, if you don't mind. Our leadership, so we also instituted a kind of alternative model of leadership in our organization that many others are also experimenting. I am the co-leader with my colleague Anika Makwakwa at the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership, and our chair of our board is Phil Nsengimana, that many of you know, a good old friend who's been our board chair for quite some years, including in our previous iteration, and he's continuing to lead our partnership as we move forward. Next slide. Many partners, you can look on our website, so I urge you and invite you to check. So next slide, I want to get to one that I can tell you a couple of concrete things. How do we work? What are the specific work areas that we focus on? We build the evidence to enable policy change, a lot of research. We really, truly believe in data, as many of you, to support our arguments, our policy advocacy, our regulatory work, and our advice to governments. One of the areas that we work, and we in fact put a lot of our resources into supporting governments with policy change. And we establish national coalitions to do that, but that's really important. So evidence and research are critical. We do a lot of work utilizing that research and that of our partners. Many of you are here to do very good and successful, I want to believe, policy advocacy so that we can all change those practices to lead us to better and greater investment levels. And of course, as thought leaders and experienced partners, we also support many others in their strategic work through what we call technical assistance partnerships, and other kinds of projects that we actually co-create with partners and fundraise together on. So next slide. I can share the slides with you, so we don't have to go into the details now, so we can have more time for a conversation. So next slide. We think, all of those areas of work really translate into focus areas of also implementation. So meaningful connectivity, as I already talked to you quite a bit, inclusive societies, how does that support building and creating inclusive societies, especially with a great focus on gender and tackling the digital gender gaps, but also other kinds of divides that exist in societies. Unfortunately, inequalities and exclusion have only increased and expanded instead of decreasing, and that of course is a concern to us. So we try to shape a lot of our work around that area. Of course, universal access and connectivity also from the perspective of beyond meaningful connectivity, right? All the work that we do in support with different countries on their policy making processes. And more recently, we only started this work, our team started this work about 1.5 to 2 years ago, refocused on sustainable internet access. So as we work on policy, how can we also advise our partners better to be more conscious of the impact of things like infrastructure investment on the environment, or renewable energies? What kind of energy are they using when we are expanding digital connectivity? You are familiar with these areas. I don't have to tell you more. So next slide, Snyder. And I think we're almost to the end. So these are some things that you can see when you get the slides, so no problem. The next slide, I'll just tell you on the very last one before the thank you, because you can find all of these on our website. Next one, Snyder. Just a couple of things that we are working on right now, in addition to participating in these things. And also we've been very involved in the Global Digital Compact and want to continue that, mainly also in partnership with your team. So we are developing at the moment, to give you an idea of just a couple of concrete things, a subsea cables policy framework. A lot of our partners that asked us for, especially our policymaker partners in different countries, what to do about these massive expansion of submarine cables and how to address, so that we actually are supporting competitive outcomes and better policy. And so we're working on that with a couple of them. We're expanding our national coalitions in a couple of countries to support policymaking processes and reform processes. We're working with the World Bank on a project to support country teams and the digital development team on really becoming more effective in their way to integrate gender responsive thinking into their ICT policy and digital development work. We are also expanding our very successful research on the costs of excluding, especially the economic consequences of excluding women from digital societies, and how to start kind of giving face to what the data is showing. What does exclusion look like? And what does inclusion look like? Contrasting to really mobilizing and incentivizing people to do better in their actions. And of course, as I said, direct support to national policymakers. So I'll stop there. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And please reach out to me. I'll put my email again on the chat. Happy to partner with new partners and consider new ways of thinking and acting in our space to do better.
Thank you very much, Sonia.
Again.
Thank you. And because we're running out of time, if you have questions or interchange, please use the chat. Dorothy, I'm going to direct you to the chat. We need to move on to our next speaker, who Bhaskar Chakravarti from the Tufts University, Fletcher School. I always remember the connection that Sonia went to Tufts. So it's a really nice transition.
It's a small world.
You should be a proud product. I think you should be proud of this wonderful product of Sonia and the leadership she's providing. But we like to bring Bhaskar and the Fletcher School back every 6 months or so, because they are doing a data-driven look at the digital planet. And it's always very interesting for us to take a look What's going on? Bhaskar, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mylene. And we're so proud of Sonia, even though I can't take any credit for her tremendous accomplishments and certainly for her education at Tufts. But Sonia, good luck in the new venture, and we'd love to explore how we can continue to support you in it. So, Mylene, thank you for the invitation to join this fascinating group and this fascinating discussion. And perhaps what I will do, just by way of background on what we do here at the Fletcher School, I founded and chair an initiative called Digital Planet, where we study the state of technology and how it's affecting lives and livelihoods around the world. Currently, we study 90 countries. By this year, we'll go up to 100. And we have detailed dashboards on how digital technology is making its way into people's lives in every shape or form. And with a particular eye towards trying to understand how technology can be both a multiplier and a divider, and how do we continue to move the needle towards multiplication, which is a theme that we've now heard repeatedly from several of the speakers. So in today's discussion, what I thought I'd do is go behind a lot of the buzz that has been dominating the headlines these days. We are sort of living in this somewhat of a contradictory world where exactly 3 years back, as a global society, we advanced 5 years in 8 weeks as everyone went into lockdown, and suddenly we were discovering how to use things like Zoom or even how to unmute ourselves when we speak, which we still haven't mastered. But now here we are in a different phase where with one foot we are pedaling backwards, and we are watching the banking sector unfold visibly in front of our eyes as the technology industry pedals backwards, as people get laid off from jobs around the world, and particularly jobs that are so important to the conversation that we're having here, talking about responsible tech, talking about inclusive tech, talking about how do we manage the development of AI before AI starts managing us. So many of those kinds of functions are the first ones that are being cut in many organizations. So while we're seeing that, we're also getting a sense of the cognitive dissonance of the other foot pedaling forward with this explosion of interest in generative AI, to the extent that it's not just a conversation that is happening within circles like this, but it's cocktail party chatter everywhere, and AI suddenly seems to have become the thing. And now, on the one hand, we should be excited about the fact that people are finally beginning to pay more attention to such an important suite of technologies. On the other, I get increasingly worried about where this is headed, because there's a tendency in the technology area, as we all know, for capital, talent, data, policy, ethical safeguards to all start getting concentrated on wherever the buzz is. As a result, I fear that the ChatGPT mania may actually detract from some of the more important developments of AI, which have, there are a lot of people who have been working away in dark basements on AI for human health, AI for environment, and it's a long list. We are all aware of that. So how do we, really focus on that AI for good part of, what was just being discussed, and not splinter this global effort? So with that as kind of the broader context, what I thought I'd do is share with you how we are seeing the development and state of AI around the world, and taking a data-based approach to it. So with your permission, I will share my screen to give you a sense of some of that data. So this is all work in process. That's why the slides aren't pretty. This is rough and ready by design, so that you're just sort of peering over my shoulder in a messy garage where things are scattered all over. So as we think about the state of AI worldwide, we currently are focusing on about 25 countries where there's a lot of activity, and we're trying to sort of unpack what does it really mean to call this thing called a state of AI. So one important aspect, of course, is data. where is data being generated? Where is data being consumed? Because in many ways, if a country is a generator of data, just yesterday, I was speaking to 50 diplomats from India, and they are, as been discussed earlier, India is using its presidency of the G20 as a major effort to tell the India story. And one aspect of the India story certainly is the incredible advances in digital public infrastructure. The other aspect of the India story is that India is a country rich in data, even though it's not a rich country. So is richness in data something that's translatable into richness? And of course, one of the things that we need to be aware of in making that transition, not just to richness, but also to the usefulness of data for AI, is that data alone is not enough. It must be accessible. So we've actually created a measure of accessibility using a number of different dimensions. One is participation in open data. The second is understanding the state of data governance policies around the world and understanding the state of cross-border data agreements and data frameworks. And putting those elements together, this is a completely unreadable chart. I apologize for that, but just to give you a sense of how this all comes together, and happy to share this, post the call. You can see the more than 25 countries here, I think, all arrayed in terms of how accessible their data is as you aggregate across those different variables. So the most data accessible country in the world in this list is the United Kingdom, followed by Germany, followed by New Zealand. The countries at the bottom of the list are Pakistan, China, and India, and just above India is Russia. So data accessibility, an important piece of the puzzle. A second piece of the puzzle is, of course, people. The talent that go into the work behind AI. But we feel that talent, just a raw measure of talent, the number of engineers you put behind it is not enough. We also have to think about this concept that we are going to call TIDE. And by TIDE, I mean talent, investment, diversity of the talent, and the state of evolution of the digital ecosystem into which the work is being plugged. So we've actually created a measure of how major cities around the world, the 50 major centers around the world, how they rank on this TIDE score. And on the right-hand side of this chart, you will see a bubble which represents the size of the TIDE size of the city. And unsurprisingly, the cities at the top are, the four top cities are American, San Francisco leading the pack, followed by New York, followed by my hometown, Boston, Seattle, and then Bangalore. And then as you keep going lower down the list, you'll see at the bottom of this list are cities like Lagos, Mexico City, and Santiago. And the blueness of the score points towards the diversity of the talent, and the redness is a lack of diversity. Now, when I talk about diversity, there are many aspects to diversity. There's gender, there is race, there is ethnicity, there is openness to immigrants. So this too can be unpacked further, but for the sake of time, I will not go into that. Just one thing I would like to note is that among American cities, San Francisco, which of course is the biggest concentrator of talent and investment around the country, also has the lowest proportion of Black AI engineers among all the major American cities where this kind of work is being done. So that's an interesting data point to throw in there. If you're looking for the highest proportion of women in AI, you want to go to Tel Aviv, which has the best gender balance in terms of AI. But besides those fun facts, I can keep going. So just to give you a sense of how all of this breaks down across a few example cities, here is the San Francisco story in terms of where it scores on talent, investment, diversity, in terms of the gender diversity and the racial diversity and digital evolution. This is what Mumbai looks like. This is what London looks like. And this is what my hometown looks like. So you can see that you could go to build an AI development unit in different parts of the world, and you get different kinds of strengths in these different locations. And this is really important, not just for the sake of diversity and globality of your sources of development, but it's critical to a product like AI, which depends on being as bias-free and as representative of the world that it is trying to inform. The narrower the source of the production is, the narrower the algorithm and the algorithmic wisdom will be. So diversity is more than just a good thing to have, it's essential to have in this particular space. And of course, when you put all these things together, you can see that there's an enormous mix and match across these cities. So I will rapidly try to move ahead so that we'll try to keep everybody on time. Another really important piece in, the ingredient that goes on the kitchen table, for our AI meal is, of course, data. So where is data being generated? It turns out that, of course, unreadable chart as always, but on the right-hand side, the horizontal axis is measuring the raw amount of broadband data consumption in millions of terabytes. And the vertical axis is our accessibility score. We see these two as important ingredients in terms of identifying where the real richness of AI is. And not surprisingly, the United States is furthest to the right, followed by China, followed by the European Union, and you can see India sort of bringing up the kind of the fourth element there. If I were to look at not all broadband consumption, but only look at mobile consumption of broadband data, a very interesting pattern emerges. The country that shoots right to the front is, drum roll please, India. And not only is India the #1 country in terms of mobile broadband data consumption, the total amount of mobile broadband data in India is as much as the sum of mobile broadband data in China and the United States, which to me was a complete surprise. But that's what the data tells me about data. Here is another sort of an interesting look at this picture. We've actually created a measure that we call the new GDP. And GDP in our lingo stands for gross data product, recognizing that GDP, the old GDP that you all knew and probably didn't love, was an imperfect measure of how rich a country is, or at least how what the size of its economy is. And the richness of the country was measured in terms of GDP per capita. So we sort of decided to take a parallel in the data economy and kind of said, let's measure the total amount of data in the economy as a measure of just the size of the data economy, and then the richness of the data economy being measured in terms of data divided by the number of internet users in the country. So it's per capita GDP, gross data product. And here you can see a somewhat different layout in terms of who is at the front of the queue: United States, followed by Iceland, followed by South Korea. And then you have Hong Kong, Bulgaria. We actually separated Hong Kong to get a better sense of how that part of China is, compares relative to the mainland. Moving right ahead, an interesting data point here is that between the US, China, and EU, they account for 60% of all the data production in the world. And India is the next player, which accounts for about 5%. So what this suggests is that the total amount of data available, if it were all to be pooled, used for training algorithms, there is a concentration of this data production in a few geographies, which should start the wheels turning in our heads as we think about the algorithmic biases that could be developed because of the concentration of what's going into this meatpacking machine. And so all the worries that one has about AI, all the worries that people had about Wikipedia being edited by a handful of, mostly male editors, and what does that do at the other end? These are issues that we should be looking at. So I would I would encourage and plead with the ITU as they bring together this brilliant group of people talking about AI for good. We are not going to get AI for good if we continue down this path, because we are seeing algorithms being trained on extremely limited data sources. So finally, I will get you to a final point, which is what happens when we bring all these elements together. As I look across 25 countries, which countries are really the furthest along in terms of AI readiness? We packed together a number of different elements into this measure: data accessibility, the TIDE scores, patent filings, AI publications, number of citations for the top AI papers, and so on and so forth, including broadband consumption and broadband consumption per capita. And here is where we end up. This is still one step away from being final. So please do not take a screenshot of it. I will share the final version with you, but this is roughly how the different countries pan out. The country with the longest bar at the bottom is the United States, followed by the United Kingdom. The third, followed by China, and the number 3 is the United Kingdom. Number 4 is where things start getting interesting, is Australia, followed by Germany, which in turn is followed by France, and then Japan and South Korea. So let me just pause there and open to any discussion or questions or anything that I might have misstated or missed.
This is so fascinating, Bhaskar. And I actually am amazed that you actually do this, not just for AI, but a whole range of other topics as well. This is the best dashboard out that I've seen for a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Malin. That's very kind. And it's especially gratifying coming from someone like yourself.
Any other questions, comments?
And to see more of our work, I just encourage you to visit us at Digital Planet. Just enter that on Google, and hopefully Google will send you to our page. So those are some of my coordinates and the Digital Planet site.
I actually did have a question in my comment, Bhaskar, which is, what are the other topics that you do these dashboards for?
Yeah, so we are we have an entire gallery of dashboards that we've got. So another one that is would be interesting to this group is something that touches on many of the issues that Sonia just mentioned. So we have, as you know, the foundation of our work is we've created a dashboard and a tool to measure the state of digital evolution and digital momentum across 90 countries. And what we've also done is we've created a measure of digital inclusion across those 90 countries. So we can identify where countries are, not only in their journey towards a digital future, but also how equitable and inclusive their journey is. We've looked at the inclusion question across 3 major fault lines. One is gender, the second is socioeconomic, and the third is the rural-urban divide. We've also looked at how that state of digital inclusion is changing over time. So one of the questions that we asked was, has the pandemic really changed anything? Has there been a meaningful shift in the state of inclusion as we went through 2020 to pretty much the end of 2021? And interestingly, the pandemic didn't really accelerate inclusion. It continued to move along the same trend line as was in the past, but there were a couple of places where there were some interesting developments. One is in the gender area. So gender inclusion actually improved in 3 regions. All 3 regions were scored pretty low to start with in terms of gender balance. And Sonia has pointed to one of them, which is South Asia. The second is the Middle East and North Africa, and the third is Sub-Saharan Africa. All 3 regions showed an uptick in terms of improved gender balance through the pandemic, and which is, the good news that I have to offer you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Thank you so much. And we'll now move to our final presentation, our home stretch. Germany has been doing some very, very interesting work about the data economy, and I'd like to invite Daniel Salowa to tell us about that, the work with the EU and the African Union on the data economy. Daniel, please.
Thank you, Maylene. It's nice to see you here also, especially that we'll be working together on this data economy thing. But hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Spoiala. I'm an advisor in GIZ, specialized now on promoting data economy and data value creation on the African continent. Previously to that, I was in the European Commission. Hello, Sonia. I had the pleasure to work with Sonia many years ago. I see many familiar faces here in the call. We started a few years ago thinking, I think the first thinking moment was the Digital Economy Task Force that we had together with the African Union Commission, that Sonia was part of it, where we first thought about data markets, about data, because traditionally development agencies come and focus a lot on access to affordable broadband, promoting skills, supporting startups, but the source of value creation is always data on the digital sphere. The source of a lot of misuse and issues that are coming from the misuse of data are there, misinformation, disinformation, breach of data protection, and so on. And we didn't saw doing an analysis. We didn't saw a lot of international actors working on the sector, especially the EU and the EU member states were not working on the sector. So we thought that is extraordinarily important for us to create a program where, in this case, we start with the African continent. We support the African continent to do two things, or actually three. First of all, to create a regulatory environment that promotes free flow of data, but also highly protects data. So in order to create trust, because trust is the main element of the economy, is that will ensure data flows between countries. The second of all, that is very important, is to showcase and to promote and to invest in concrete data use cases. We want to see how data produces benefits locally for the citizens, because, to be honest, we know that is pretty obvious where the majority of the value of data goes right now, and it's not trickling out to the citizens. The third thing is to support the African continent in achieving or maintaining data sovereignty by investing in secure and green data infrastructure. This is data centers, this is data exchange points for the government. We feel that there is a strong need for this, and we have engaged with the African Union Commission, with the European Union Commission, with Smart Africa. That is an important partner for us, and in time we got the involvement of France, Belgium, Estonia, and Finland. So I think in 1 month from now, for the last year, we were designing this. We were traveling across Africa to understand better the environment. This is a sector where it's pretty new. There is not any literature around Africa, so you have to go there and talk and see for yourself, what are the issues on the ground. So we are very close to signing this project. I think in 1 month, we are just finalizing the budgets and stuff like that. The project will be around 60 million euros based on these three components: data regulatory frameworks, data use cases, and data infrastructure. GIZ is a leading coordinator of this Team Europe initiative. As you know, the European Union approach from now on will be to go as one, and the Team Europe initiative is like the instrument of doing so. We will be starting work as soon as possible. For example, I'm now in Senegal. Last week, we had the launch workshop of the first data economy strategy on the African continent, where we want to create a model of data governance that can be multiplied and can to other African countries. This is a initiative that we work together with Smart Africa. We are preparing, with Maylene in this case, the first conceptualization and implementation of open banking data use case for small and medium enterprises on the African continent, where we want to see how we can create more financial inclusions for the companies in the informal sector, to use data to create an algorithm to see, to prove that actually they have the income to be financed by banks or other fintechs, I'm working here in Senegal, for example, to create the first data use case on agriculture, to create a data space of all agriculture data in Senegal, and to work also with the startups to give this data to create new services, disease control, quality of soil. There are so many applications that we can do. But of course, our Finnish colleagues are leading on data infrastructure. We are creating what so-called digital investment infrastructure, meaning the project will not have the money to provide the financing for building a data center, but we will support our partners to do the feasibility studies, the market assessments, everything that they need for them to go in front of banks like EIB, the French Development Agency, that is also a bank, or KfW in this case, to request loans, because that is a loan-based based approach. Yeah, and this is like in short what we are planning to do on the African continent. Looking from a data perspective, because I was interested hearing the interventions of that were ahead of me, I can see like we have to put developing countries, partner countries, especially Africa, on the list. Is that I was looking at all that. I could not see any African country on the statistics. Data is extraordinarily important. It's not the oil. We in GIZ, we consider that data is the groundwater, meaning it is a public good for everybody to be used and to produce benefits for all. At the moment, there is a lot of data on the continent. It's very silos, extraordinarily silos. And one problem with data is quality, because you can have large amounts of data, but if that data is not good from a quality perspective, then the insights will be wrong. Well, for that reason, we already started. The AUC published and adopted last year the Continental Data Policy Framework. That was a paper that was done with the support of GIZ. If you have the time to look at it, actually it's a very good document, and the implementation plan is very detailed, touches upon all issues around data. But at the end of the day, what we're going to try also, and this is probably will be a little bit more sensitive, is to have a model of how data can produce value, have direct impact on the GDPs of a country, especially here in Africa. And we want to touch upon all the sensitive topics, including taxation, because at the end of the day, if this is a resource, has to produce, we have to have a fair model of distribution of this resource in the economy. So yeah, this is, sorry, I don't have a presentation. The invitation to this meeting just got to me like an hour ago. So happy to reply to any of your questions.
Thank you, Daniel, for just jumping in. We had another speaker and he unfortunately couldn't make it. And so we had a wonderful substitute. And we are going to hear more on this topic of open banking. I think where people-centered internet has our specific focus is the public goods and the private participation. And so open banking is exactly the kind of place where the private sector and the public sector can combine to catalyze the digital transformation we want to see, which is internet of the people, by the people, for the people, and with the people. And with that, thank you all for being part of this. And you will send out the agenda for next month, and we really appreciate you attending. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming, Yolanda. Thanks for coming, Steve. I'm glad the DataSphere people got to see it. And Dorothy, it was good to see you yesterday.
Always good to see you, Maylin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maylin. That was amazing, and was great to see Steve Crocker as well around.
I didn't know you knew Steve. Yes,
Yeah.
Steve it's so important for us to have the original pioneers associated with people-centered internet.
Absolutely. No, it was a really amazing session. I really was happy to be there.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for being here.